Hi, Udit.
Hi Rohit. So how are you doing in Corona and Gurgaon? The cases are like getting too much in near Delhi side, right?
Yeah, it has started spreading now.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, Social, this thing, isolation and all this stuff won't work here.
Yeah. But anyhow, it will have to work. Otherwise, the situation will be very bad. Somehow, like they need to do. Otherwise, if the vaccine is also not there, it's very difficult.
Yeah, we should be prepared for the worst. That's the only thing. Point of it.
Yeah.
I was, uh, I was discussing with somebody something. So he
Okay.
was talking about some situation which happened way back in the 70s and
Mm-hmm.
around Delhi NCR only. So he said the situation was so bad uh, that people if that kind of thing happens today, people won't be able to manage.
Yeah.
Hi,
Like apart
Jason.
from 6 or 7 states, they are anyhow managing it good. Only the problem lies over there. Hi, Basil.
Hey man, hi. Morning. No, sir, good evening.
You have a
Uh,
US or client, I guess.
Yeah, I sleep late and yeah.
Uh,
uh, so, like I said, you both have to ask me questions, and I'll try and answer as best as I can.
mm.
Udit, go ahead.
Okay, so like I have just two, three basic questions, but they are like the most important at this point. So the questions are like, what all products are we targeting? I'm getting an echo.
Yeah, same here.
Hello.
I'll go on mute 1 second. When you speak, I'll go on mute.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. So yeah, like what all products do we need to target for now? And is there any linking between them, like whether they are that's what we were discussing that day, like a parent product or any features that are common, and what all basic features do you need at this point of time? And those are pretty questions like which came to mind for this call. And rest
Yeah.
if
So what I'll do is like I was doing that day earlier. I'll go to Slack and I'll also share my screen.
yeah.
So what we'll do is for now, as far as the infra and other things are concerned,
Yeah.
we'll focus mostly on digital cognition
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like I shared with both of you that day also, if we go ahead and focus on digital cognition, rest of the framework and structure should fall into place, shouldn't be an issue. That is one. Then what both of you have advised me, that we probably need a message broker. We also need some kind of structure which is got to do with the microservices. I agree with that, but like I said, I don't have experience on those things, so both of you will have to kind of lead on that one. So I'll give you the general structure of what I have in mind. um, uh, on the Slack, these four which are there, this is basically digital cognition, the core product. That's I just kind of coded it that way. So what we basically end up doing is we end up creating a BI tool which is similar to say Tableau or Talent or Qlik or some of these. um, I shared that over here, saying that this is what we want to do, and
Okay, maybe I can expand on the question a bit more. So, of course, we'll be okay, there is an echo. Sorry, 1 minute. Let me.
1 second, 1 second. I'll go on mute. 1 second.
I put you on mute. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay. So the question, it's a one of the questions is similar from my side. So the question is, we don't need to focus on more on the side products, but the question from my side will be, uh, again, for the side products, will we be providing the same kind of services that you have in digital cognition, or will it be a kind of will there be extra services? Why I'm asking is, uh, the the intention I had in mind was, as I said, we will be. I would rather want to separate the UI, keep the UI stateless from the backend, essentially. So the UI will be stateless. Whenever it has to display something, it will actually have to fetch the information from one of the databases. I have a question on that. I'll get to that in a minute. And then any kind of processing work, like let's say you have to apply some regression analysis on a huge data set or any things like that, those will be taken care of by worker processes, essentially, or worker nodes, that is separate from where the UI is going to be. And between them, you will have task scheduler like Celery, and in order to pass the messages around, have message broker like Redis, RabbitMQ, or ZeroMQ. So the question here is all the work that is going to be done for all the apps going to be the same, which means you will have one kind of worker node, or are you going to have, like, let's say Python trader will have some extra services or processes, I mean, extra algorithms that will be running that is different from digital cognition, or anything like that, that will keep Python traders, kind of give it a separate worker uh, personality than the base infrastructure, the base digital cognition worker. So that is what I was trying to understand. I mean, this is an extension to what Udit was asking, just to understand how the apps work in relation with the core infrastructure.
Right. So, see, when I say core infrastructure or the core product, it is as far as the the group or the organization is concerned. This is our core focus product. Uh, I also end up confusing you sometimes by saying that once this is done, this will be the base upon which we will build the others. The reason that I say that is, let's say we end up creating this and creating this particular structure for digital cognition only, then whether it is Python trader, pricing intelligence, Peyton Spike, or whatever else that we are doing, all of that will go ahead and uh, sit as applications within this larger product. Now I understand the question that you asked me, that Rohit, if for Python trader there is something specific to that, some algo or some kind of analysis or whatever it is, some kind of data pipeline, so to say, which is running specifically for that, then would we require a dedicated worker for that? Yes, that would be required. Similarly for pricing intelligence, similarly for patent spike. So the processing itself will be quite different. So what is the basic structure right now? Let me explain that to you. For patent spike, what will usually happen is that either we have an existing DB of patents, and against which whenever a new this thing comes in, people will check, and various analysis will be done on that particular patent, and whatever reports and other things need to come out, those will come out. So that is as far as the structure is concerned. There is no further scope on that, and there will never be any further scope on that. So that's as far as architecture is concerned. that particular function, product, or that particular offering has got the least amount of scope, and it's got a very restricted and focused scope. That's where it ends. The way I see it, within the larger Django project, this one will be app dedicated to only processing patents, and mostly it will be text processing with some kind of image processing also involved in the middle. So very clear pipelines that this text comes in, gets stored in the DB. Some new text comes in, compares against it, or certain processing happens. All that processing happens within our existing Python modules, and to the front end we send information, which we are also storing in our in our DB. So that is one. So Peyton Spike has got limited architectural challenges, the way I see it. So yeah, so if you're okay with Peyton Spike, let me confirm that from you. Then I'll go to the others, and in the end I'll come to digital cognition, because that is where a whole lot of things will be there. So yeah.
Okay, so just please ignore any sounds that come from behind. So kid is in the room. So the question from my side more is, okay, you have Peyton Spike as an app. Yes, I agree. You basically have a database of patents, images, the characters, words, the relations that you've extracted from the images, all whichever way you actually store the data in the database, that is also fine. But finally, the processing. Oh, sorry. Yeah, finally, the processing that is actually going to be uh, done will be one of the standard ML algorithms, right? So that will be part of that is the expectation as part of the core digital cognition project, where you will be having the core ML algorithms put in, and then Peyton Spike and others will actually use these as part of their application. This was my understanding initially, so that is what I wanted to clarify. Will there be a different use case otherwise? I mean, will there be a very highly specific algorithm that has to be run as part of Peyton Spike other than data ingestion? Is what I want to know.
Yes, there could be absolutely anything. And now let me just, it really doesn't matter whether, let's say tomorrow for some reason we decide we want TensorFlow as part of one of these, things which is running in the backend, and TensorFlow gets images passed in from the front end. Somebody uploads an image, somebody uploads a PDF, which gets converted into an image, which goes to TensorFlow. TensorFlow does whatever needs to be done, classification of images, this, that, whatever. Passes back information. The information that will come up front could be again images. I'm just taking a hypothetical this thing. Obviously, there could be images coming up front, wherein you might say that yes, this thing compares to this thing compares to whatever is there. But the structure of the overall, the base structure of the application will not change. I don't see a reason why that should change. Um, uh, uh, Very simply, you are storing something in the DB. You pick that up, you give it, you pass it on to a Python method. That Python method can, import TensorFlow, can import PyTorch, can import Keras, can import whatever in the world. Does the processing returns something? When it returns something, that's something, whether it is some kind of data frame or some another image, or whatever it is that it returns, that return will either get passed on to to a HTML page through maybe some JavaScript and stuff like that, or it will get stored in our DB. Whether there's an advanced algorithm working in the background, or whether there is just very simple Python code, how would that impact is what I would want to understand. If you think there is
Okay, let me at least explain my viewpoint from what I'm actually my thought process. So you technically have a user sitting at the UI. He uploads an image. Let's say he uploads a patent document. Let's assume it's a patent document. He uploads a document and uh, presses a button to actually trigger the scanning of whether there is some similarity or what percentage of similarity is there with any of the existing patents. Now, this request will actually, so the UI is technically, at least so the UI, all it does is it actually takes the information, sends this as a message, puts it in a message queue like celery, and you have, let's say, a Peyton Spike worker thread who picks this up. Now, once he picks it up, he sees that, okay, I've got a PDF image, let's say that is stored in one of the inside one of the system folders that we have, that is uploaded to one of the system folders. Now, there are a set of steps. So you have, the first step is to actually break down the PDF into a set of images or extract the data out of it. So that process, let's say if you, I don't know, for image processing, you use OpenCV, TensorFlow, anything of that sort. If you have to convert a PDF into what do you call processable data, that is actually a process on its own, because if it's a small patent or going forward, if you're processing something very huge, you might want it to be an asynchronous task. It should not block the UI continuously. So the worker will send a request to one of the core modules to do that process on the specific file and send a message back, an asynchronous message back saying that, okay, this file has been converted into a processable data format and stored in this DB, in this table, some table name that is referenced by some UUID. Once that message comes back to the, let's say, the Python trader worker, the next step is based on what the user has provided, let's say some some settings like, okay, he wants only to know only patents that have more than 60% correlation or things like that. Any based on the parameter, he again sends the next message again, next request again to the core worker, who actually will run some kind of regression analysis or things like that to find similarity with the existing patents, which again will run on the core worker again. And once it is done, he'll again post it back to the Python worker thread basically. So you have the core worker thread where all the main algorithms like all the regression, correlation, anything, even k-means clustering, any algorithm that is running, you have a standard set of algorithms where each algorithm can be run based on, you point some data to it, you provide the parameters, and it just provides the data back without knowing what the data, I mean, what the data needs to be or where the data comes from. I don't need, I mean, that worker need not care about that. The specific app worker is the one who will actually finally use that to process further. Essentially, whether I have to use this for, let's say, in Python trader case, you're getting correlation. So that is where the more intelligent flow comes in based on the application side. So this is the thought process, at least what I had in mind. So you would need the core set of workers that will that can be on multiple nodes, that can take on the process when you have multiple users actually using the service. It will actually help when we can spin up all the core worker nodes in case the load is high, and then bring them down in case the load is low. And specifically if the apps are, let's say, Peyton Spike has more users or less users, so you can have maybe one or two worker threads for worker processor or worker nodes for that. Let's say BA has more apps, you can have more workers for that. And of course, the core workers will be even more, so that they can handle the load from the various requests coming in, because the core workers will be the actual ones that actually does the job. The app workers will essentially only be sending the request, the corresponding relevant request to each of any of the core workers, and then just waiting for the response basically. So it can be lesser as well because it's an async process. So this was the idea that I had in mind. uh, does it make sense, or that's what I want to know from at least Udit. You can also join in if you think there is something else that has to be.
Yeah, like that's totally fine because once the request coming, like the batch distribution is really important. Moreover, like if we are training it continuously, it will take like it might extend up to much time. So
Yes.
for that itself, like either you were talking about nginx and rabbitmq, so those all will come and we will have to distribute the task.
Yes.
So that's what like so if there is a bigger task that will go to the core worker, and if the application specific task can we have different workers. So that's why that's what like the basic functionality which will be common, that will be given to the main worker,
Yeah.
and all the app specific requirements will be given to the like specific app workers. So
So
if we
this
have
will.
that classification, yeah, like
Yeah,
so.
that's what. So that way, even if you want to create another application that uses the main workers, so we can actually provide an infra in such a way that you can create a new application that will use the existing standard regression or correlation, all those algorithms, because those workers need not care about where the data is coming from. They just work on some data, provide an output. That's it. It doesn't matter if it's an image-based data, weather data, anything. It doesn't matter. So that was the reason behind. I mean, that was the reason why I was asking. Okay, do you expect a lot of intelligence? But looks like at least logically speaking, it makes sense to have separate app workers, as I mentioned now, and not have the app logic in the UI, because I would rather prefer the UI to be stateless and just get its state from the database itself. So that way, it will become scalable when more and more users kind of start using it. So this is the thought process I had. At least, does it make sense, Rohit? Or
Yes, Basil, and Udit, yes, I agree with you. And that's exactly what we would want. The last bit I couldn't understand. I could understand the rest of it, but when you said that the UI needs to be stateless and it will get state from the DB.
okay,
Uh,
so anything at least that we display on the UI, any data graph, everything that we display on the UI has to be pulled in from. I mean, this is a standard pattern. There's nothing different about it. The only thing is we should not at any point of time store the data inside the UI framework itself. Something like, let's say, you because I've seen this case in a few scenarios where, because people use Python, let's say Flask or Django framework, they have a tendency to store the information within the Python structures itself inside the same UI framework. So that part I would kind of refrain from and keep that part stateless, so that if at all you have to improve or upgrade the UI, you should not have to recreate the whole database inside the UI node. You upgrade the UI reads the state from database and displays it on the screen. Otherwise, if you have to upgrade the UI, you essentially will have to back up the all the locally stored data into the database, then upgrade, then load them back. That becomes a very nasty affair when you go with the upgrade process. So that's what I was just telling. The UI has to be stateless.
Yeah, Rohit, like that itself. So basically, this is the procedure followed. Front end, basically, it always runs on just APIs. If you need any information, send the information, like you will get the information through API. If you want to store any information, send that information in the API. So the backend part, it will directly communicate with the database. And if you want any transaction, whether the data needs to be pulled out, pushed in, anything, the backend will do it. So this how like it's much better for security also. You can't do anything. We can have logics like in the front end backend to secure the data, everything. And so this should be like whatever Basil said. It's totally like it's very good approach. That is like the stateless thing. So front end, it doesn't need anything. Just if he is able to communicate the backend, then its front end part is done. So that's
Did
stateless
that make
basically.
yeah? Did that make sense, Rohit? Or
yeah. So I've understood and I agree with you. So what Okay, now not looking at Peyton Spike only, but let's look at digital cognition's structure. And I agree with what you're saying, and we'll do it exactly like that. I have a couple of clarifications. So let's say uh, that a scenario like I have a user who's got quite a large database which is there, and a very basic task, a simple task like he picks up some SQL table, and he wants to go ahead and maybe understand something as simple as a EDA, this thing that he does. Uh, when the user, when let's say he's got 5 employees within the organization who will pick up different tables from that DB which is there, and the DB is his existing DB with which he's created a connection through our product. And when these guys they pull all 5 of them pull some data from that particular DB. So that DB itself has got, say, maybe millions of records in it. Each and every one of them maybe pulls up data for one particular country. Let's say somebody pulls it out for South Africa, somebody for some other country. So all 5 of them pull out their own data. Then they want to do some basic analysis on that. Maybe they just want to see, say the mean, median, mode of some of these records. Yeah, very simple stuff. Now, according to what you're saying, I need to understand the practical bit of it. That as to when they pull this data, right? So let's say all of them are sitting in the same office location in some place. They all pull out this data. Maybe their main DBs on some remote server somewhere, whatever it is. Once they've done that, for how much time will the connection between the main DB and the guy's front end remain as live? That is my first question. Second question is, let's say that connection stays live for a very less duration, and maybe so they have millions of records there, and everybody pulls up 5,000 records each for their own country, this thing. And they end up creating a pandas DF, and then maybe they start doing some they click on some column, they do something on the front end. When this activity is happening, uh, how is this SQL data with say 5,000 rows, or this pandas DF with 5,000 rows, where is it actually sitting at that point in time when this they're clicking on the front end and other things? From my understanding, how it probably would end up being is that maybe on their local systems we download some kind of compressed format of this thing. Could be a pickle or could be something else. That is one option. The other option is that this much data might not be a very huge thing to end up sitting on their browser itself. And if it sits on their browser, will that be a faster option, much more optimized option? And how does this entire thing play then? What is the role of the API? What all APIs would be involved? What kind of APIs would have to be coded? The workers and other things, like you said, the core worker and other things will be there, and the stateless UI and all. So how does this play from a practical point of view, and where do all of these things sit? I don't necessarily want an answer from you right now on this call, but that is the level of understanding that I want to have. Then things will be much more clear to me, because otherwise I end up getting
This
confused.
was actually going to be my next question, to be honest. So I actually wanted to. The next question was: are we ingesting data from uh, basically customer premise, where we pull in records from there and store it in our local database, or do we expect to modify it then and there on their database? So this was one question that I wanted to understand. I mean, do you expect the companies to okay, even better. So, are we actually, because if they have to provide the database for us to access, we probably would be running on premise, correct? So, or they're going to
Yeah,
publish the
yeah.
database over the VPN?
Let me address this.
Yeah.
1 second. So it's like it is similar to what happens on if my organization starts using Tableau Cloud tomorrow, or Talent Cloud, or whatever is there. The data that belongs to my organization will never leave my premise. It will never leave my servers. It will never leave my desktops. It will never leave my laptops. uh, how will Talent Cloud or something else then service me? Their code comes and sits on my system. It does not take the data away from my system. It does not take the data away back to their servers. The only thing which is being sent from their servers to me is probably the JavaScript front end, and their own DBs which operate Talent, the internal DBs to Talent to function, sit on their servers. That part of their code never comes to me. So when you said initially that, Rohit, we'll separate the front end and we'll separate the back end, that is the reason for it. That is one more reason. So it's a simple client server architecture. The server which is making the application work, the digital cognition work, and the internal DBs which make digital cognition work, never are not hosted on their premise. Their data does not come onto our premise. That is how the structure
Okay.
will be.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so it is just like any other BI tool. When these guys offer a cloud this thing, so that is how it will be. And let's again presume that somebody says, no, I'm not okay with this. I want an enterprise in-house deployment. Then also it is the same situation, that we will get space on one of their servers. We probably will go ahead and host our entire Jingbang within a Docker image, and that Docker image will go and sit on their system without any root access. Now, again, this thing I've been struggling with for almost 1 year. I've also put it on as one of the issues on that earlier DC, this thing that I put on GitHub, that how to ensure that our code stays safe. Let's say I deploy my code in Udit's organization tomorrow. I don't want any employee in Udit's organization to be able to open up my code and see it. I'll give him a Docker image, out of which we'll broadcast an IP on which they will communicate with whatever is internal to our this thing image, to our system. But I don't want somebody who has root access on that server, which obviously will be there, to be able to get into my Docker image. So that is one challenge. We will deal with that challenge later on. So not to be bothered about that right now. So that is the structure. So once, if we are able to understand that this data has come from their server, which is could whether a person is sitting on a server itself and using digital cognition, or he's sitting on his laptop or whatever within their LAN, or at some remote location, they are hosting a server on which they are hosting a DB. Within that DB is their organization's private data. We don't want access to that. What we want to ensure is that they should be able to pull a data set out of the larger database, and get that data set either onto their laptops and get it down as a pickle file or any other compressed format, and or get it into their browser. So what I initially thought was getting such a thing into their browser, because browser storage is quite okay in today's date, so that shouldn't be a challenge. If we do that, then the processing on the front end, which will be all JavaScript, will be much faster, because the moment it is in the browser storage, you already have a JSON format, right? You don't necessarily have to then again go back to their server, which is hosted in some other location, and communicate and keep those connections live or do whatever it is. So that is how that is the practical application of the thing that I would want to understand. And then, like I said, I do not understand Kafka, neither do I understand Celery. To a certain extent, I understand AP scheduler, or there's another one called ND scheduler, or some of these Python based schedulers which are there. But there also my understanding is very very basic. So if this we can keep as the basic use case, and if this we are okay with, then we can keep on building upon this, and then we shouldn't have much of a hassle. Our code should be pretty much optimized, and the entire otherwise there will be lag. Otherwise you'll keep on seeing loaders on the screen and things like that. Then people lose interest. They say our own this thing we are not able to process fast enough. So that is the focus.
Okay. You mentioned there is a use case where our app will not run on their premise and their data will not leave their premise, basically. I'm just trying to see how then will our workers get its hands on the data. So then it has to be a browser app kind of Node.js is what I'm just wondering. I mean,
Even that sort, like whatever you said, that is perfectly fine. But for that, we need to follow one like server architecture. So for that, how to design our own servers through which they will connect, like that's why I just asked that very pretty basic question: what will be its functionality? So right now, suppose if we talk about digital cognition, so if we take that particular use case, we know its functionality will be like from the front end, we will connect to their DB and all, and after that we'll have to decide the server. And then it also depends, these big tasks are like we hardly do them through websites, we need to create them the softwares itself for them. So that's what, like
but
do we
see,
need to,
the tricky part here is the data cannot leave their premise,
yeah, that's what.
and the workers are not on their premise. So I'm just wondering how that will turn out if we don't do a on-premise deployment. So I'm just thinking how that works currently. What does talent do I? Okay, sorry, you have put up your hand, so you have something to say?
Yeah, so that use case, it works. There's no issue in that. It'll work.
Okay.
We don't need Node.js. We don't need anything else. Just the separation of what Basil suggested initially. Just the separation on two different Django servers. One running the backend, one running the front end. That also, even if we don't do that, it's as simple as this. That let's say my whatever is being processed by them, okay, uh, is processed in isolation at their end. Once that processing is done, uh, my system aids them in creating a creating a database on their own server, is what we need to understand. So let's say in today's date, they have this, like I said, millions of rows already in a table on their server. They pull out something uh, and keep it either on their system, local system, or keep it within their system's browser. They end up doing whatever processing needs to get done, and again they store it back on their system only. They do not store it back on our servers. That doesn't happen. And when you say then how do our workers work in that situation, the method which is there, which is running, is again running in the our system, but then we don't get to see their data. my method, it runs in such a manner that I don't, even if any employee on my
But
end.
but the data that would mean that the data has come from their premise to our servers, right? That is itself a security issue there, correct? Whether we see it or not, they won't care about that, technically speaking.
No, no. See, when I say whether they, yeah, I get your point. So what you are saying is that how will they trust us that we are not actually, trying to do something like a man in the middle and look at what data they've sent to our method, and our method is
Actually,
getting processed here.
actually, that's not a question. They won't trust us to do, not do that. That's a general fact, I would believe. If we say that, okay,
No, no.
we will be, if we tell them that, okay, the data will come to our servers and gets processed, and then that will never fly in that case. I don't think that will at least fly. I mean,
Okay,
I may be wrong.
okay, right. So let me ask you a simple question. Something like Zoho CRM. Okay, Zoho CRM has a cloud offering. Where does the data get stored and how does it get processed through Zoho if it's not coming to their servers?
I think
Zoho,
for all these Zoho, Great HR, and all of these cases, they actually spin up a separate VM for each customer. I may be wrong. Have not explored on
right,
how they
right,
actually.
right. So what I'm saying is, even if I spin up a VM, or if I have a dedicated Docker image for somebody, what that does is it isolates Udit's data versus your data. But
Yeah, yeah,
still
that
both
is
of
fine. Okay, okay.
but still both of
That's
your
fair.
data is coming to me, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. So we need to figure that out. So all of these SaaS offerings which are there, which people are, the entire world is using in today's date, how are they storing the data? Even your, your Tableau cloud, it allows you to integrate this DB, that DB, all kinds of 1,000 DBs you can integrate and create your reports and do various things with that. Where are those DBs hosted? And
Uh, let me at least. I don't have the exact answer for that. I have not explored more on that front because at least wherever I worked, it usually is on premise. So let me at least get an answer for you. Let me just do a bit more research on that and then get back to you.
yeah, so see, that is the structure that we need to follow. I understand nobody in
Yes,
the
makes
world is
sense.
nobody in the world is supposed to trust us with their data. That is not what we want. Even tomorrow, God forbid, if we give all kinds of guarantees and whatever it is that we do, uh, uh, when Facebook and these guys get into trouble with data breaches, we will not survive. We will not even survive one day. Also, we'll
Yes,
all be we'll all be locked up inside. So but how does that happen? That has to be explored.
yes.
So ultimately, the and that's the reason I posted that on. Let me share that with you. One second. I don't know if you've seen that. Uh, so again, I've been struggling with this thought for quite a while, but whether that yeah. So there'll be some Docker something over here.
The shipping code, Docker root access. No.
Sorry. Yeah. 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 So this is what it is. So there is some SO stuff which is there, which I kind of referenced earlier. Create a container, provide non-root user to certain directory. Also create a script which shall delete, drop, destroy the directory that holds the Python if the root user tries to access that. So I don't really know. So how are others doing it? So that is what we will have to explore, because
Yes,
this is just a
I am on that.
this yeah.
That part I'll figure out. So I just want to understand. So basically, in one of the previous cases, right, the backend workers were essentially written in Java. So Java is pretty much like a compiled code. So once that compiled binary goes in, nobody can actually figure out, technically speaking. So you had some, the UI part was left open for anyone to actually see or do anything, but the backend workers were still intact. So in our case, let me just figure out how we can actually handle this, how the current companies would actually do that. Let me explore a bit more and get back on that. I cannot answer more because I don't have that site insight yet.
See, I agree with what you're saying. So let's say we were to code in Java or we were to code in C Sharp, .NET, and ADO and other things, and we were to only have our backend code or the code that is very near and dear to us as binary files. That is okay, but that just saves our code, right? It still doesn't solve the problem of the user data coming to us. The user data coming to us,
Yes, yes, yes,
and
yes. That part I have to figure out, and I'll get back to you. Definitely.
Actually,
I'm
like
on that.
these all things are basically done by virtualization.
Yes.
So in that earlier, like ETL was used, and they used to store the every data whatever used to come. But now they never store the data. They just create the virtual tables, and that too also whatever is needed in the logic, they will save only that. So I have like a very top level this understanding. I have not like deep dive into or nothing did much. So I guess
Yeah.
that
Now
we
is a
will have
good
to
time to
check
do
in
the
that
deep dive.
direction.
Yeah. Now is a good time to do the deep dive, man.
Yeah, sure.
Rohit, we'll get back to you on that. So myself and Udit, we'll do a bit more research on this, get a better idea on how our solution will look like, and then get back to you on this.
So, Rohit, basically, our understanding from today is one use case that a client or a guy will come, he will connect his database to our system. That won't be getting copied, and he will be able to do certain normal basic stuff like creating dashboard charts, updating those tables, and all, right?
yeah, that's correct, Udit. That's what
So,
it is.
so
And
yeah, like discuss. We will read about this particular use case and we'll try to form like see how it's done, what all things do we need,
Yeah.
and those things.
And
yeah,
just one.
and I
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
no, no. What I was saying was, I agree with what both of you have suggested, and because my knowledge is limited on the asynchronous handling of tasks and things like that. So yes, workers doing things and APIs in the middle, that is definitely required. But so that is one part which is excellent. So that we'll do. But how will this issue get resolved? So my understanding is again from just a optimization point of view. I want to keep the entire data at their end only. I don't want their data to travel over the internet to our servers at any given point in time. From an optimization point of view, that is one. Also from a security point of view, we never want that to happen. I know some people, I know some people personally who are involved with heavily invested into things like Zoho CRM and all. Their entire organizations, this thing runs on that. And I asked those people this question. Fortunately, I had access to the CXO level in that organization. I asked them. I said, uh, they were clueless. They said, "What are you talking?" I said, "Where is your data in Zoho?" I said, "Yeah, where is Zoho? Is Zoho sitting in your office in your in the neighboring room? What are you talking?" Uh, they had no clue. They are not
Oh,
bothered.
wow. Okay. This is a very interesting thing. I'll definitely look beyond it.
But just a point, like in this kind of use case, we won't have much asynchronous task. Like
That you
yeah,
will have to understand. I'm sorry. My understanding on that
that,
is not. Yeah.
see
Okay.
that's what like again these two use cases got like mixed up. One use case is the logo and patent everything. So there we need to have a database and we need to continuously train. So that's why we need a worker which will be asynchronous. But suppose if the same time I'm creating any dashboard, I'll just take out the data, select a column and create a dashboard. For that we don't have like asynchronous tasks very much. I don't think like Tableau and all. Like I haven't done anything on that, but I don't think they have
Yeah,
that much asynchronous.
yeah, that use case is just fetching the data from the database and displaying it. That is going to be
Yeah.
pretty much synchronous only, yeah, from the UI
That's
side.
short. So there, like the worker and everything, it won't even come. Here,
No,
it's just normal thing.
the worker case will come when, okay, they provide a huge data and they expect some kind of analysis to be done on that and that getting displayed. That's where the worker will come in.
Yeah,
So, of
that's
course,
yeah, right.
the basic display is just a basic use case, but there, if you look at a bit more advanced use case, is like you apply some kind of data transformation on the data, some regression, anything on that data, and then displaying that so that it makes more sense to them. So that will be a bigger application rather than just the basic display, which can currently be done using Grafana or any of those what do you graphing dashboards that is already there. So it will be more of applying something on the data and then displaying that. So there will be worker case as well, I think.
Yeah, maybe
Yes.
like we can look into how Tableau basically trains a model. So there also it is doing the same thing, just collecting the data, and it, moreover, it will be a big task, so it should be asynchronous. So if we are able to get how it is done, then it
Yeah,
very well coincides with
that's what we'll
our,
figure out. Yeah.
yeah.
One more question, Rohit. We have a lot of these companies like Tableau, Qlik, and all that. What is our specific USP, our selling point? That is what I was trying to understand as well. That is one question I want to ask for a while now. So I thought, okay, might as well now.
See, multiple USPs. What you need to understand is, uh, if you just look at Gartner's this thing, magic quadrants and their hype cycles and all of this, in which most of these products are there. Um, and over a period of, I think, last 3 years, I've been looking at these things quite carefully. And why I name Gartner is because, of course, they are the ones who are the leaders in this. Um, what you will notice is that they go ahead and promote products, or they go ahead and approve and really rejoice products, so to say, which have a very easy interface to use but end up achieving a whole lots. What I mean by that is, you go and see Tableau's this thing, user forums. They are full of people inquiring about, I want to do this, I want to do that. This is not happening. That is not happening. This I did. I want to redo that. I want to fix this. You go to Talend again, you will find that, and that is where somebody like us, we end up reading that and understanding that, yeah, these are the issues people are still stuck with. This is the thing that these guys are still not able to achieve. Why they are not able to achieve? Because their monolith got created at one point in time, on top of which they kept on adding functionality, kept on adding lots of things. uh, it became a huge application and structure. It is not very user friendly. You still need people still pay a huge amount to somebody to train them to work on Tableau. People still pay somebody a huge amount to train them on Talend, and then they end up using Talend or Tableau. Look at Alteryx, okay, or Alter YX. These guys came into the market much later. They have got much more market capitalization in today's date. Why? They are doing much more fancier things, and they are doing it in a much more user friendly manner. Okay, that is one. Second thing is, how many of these people are actually doing any machine learning, any actual business analytics? Not many of them. Okay, they let the user do that. So I have my this SQL table, I have this image DB, I have this other DB with some unstructured data. Well, great. If I am as intelligent as Udit, if I am as intelligent as Basil, I can use that tool and I can do some analysis with it. If I am as dumb as this guy who doesn't know what it is, but he wants that result, his organization has that data, and this guy has this sense that, if something of this sort happens, I'll get those results. He doesn't have the money to employ Udit and Basil. So can I provide this guy a product which will actually do that magic, which Udit will do or Basil will do, or some other person will do, and this guy just does a couple of clicks here and there, or maybe he doesn't even do that. Right. So that is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a call with Aviroop at 9.
Give us a few days to at least research on this and get back with the solution for what we are use cases that we have here. So now at least we have a better idea of what we have to expect going forward with the deployment. So that will at least help us.
Yeah. So that is one. The second thing is on the USP. I've given you a very generic understanding of what the USP is supposed to be. I will not reveal what the USP is supposed to be. Over a period of time, when all of us, we educate ourselves, and when we say, yes, I saw Tableau, and Tableau doesn't do this for me. I saw Talent doesn't do this for me. So maybe my base inspiration, my initial inspiration to begin with, was that, okay, let me look at Talent and code something similar to it, and let me look at Tableau and code something similar to it. But few months down the line, I want that USP coming from you saying, Rohit, yeah, these guys don't do it. Can we put it in our product? We'll discuss with 20 guys on our team. Let everybody come back with ideas, and we'll say, yeah, why not? We can put this on our product. Let's do it. Yes, that is what the USP is.
Makes sense. Fair enough.
I don't really know who are the guys who coded all that stuff. Were there people who actually had experience as a data analyst? Here are people who have experience as a data analyst, right? If they have used that product and they've not felt comfortable with it, and today they have the what you call the freedom to go and fix that issue, not on Tableau but on your own platform, why not? Let's do it. That's our USP.
Okay. Makes sense.
Udit, any questions? Basil, any questions? Otherwise, we can wind up the call.
None for now, at least from my side.
Yeah, we can wind up.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.